What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue with our 2025 predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. Up next is the West Virginia Mountaineers. West Virginia coming off a pretty average type season last year, going 6-7 overall in 2024. You look at this team for 2025, obviously it's a brand new era for West Virginia. I really wouldn't say it's a new era for like a coaching change, but still, it is a new era when you do got a new head coach. You got Rich Rodriguez taking over as the head coach for this West Virginia team. So yeah, a guy that has played for West Virginia at his alma mater. So yeah, that's really kind of a good hire here for West Virginia. We'll see how well he does here for this program in the near future. And you look at this roster, it's really a lot of new players on this roster. I'm not really seeing any major weaknesses for this team though. You look at both sides of the football, plenty of depth on this roster, but again, a lot of new players on this roster that are going to have to step up. But I think this is a West Virginia team that will be a solid team. I don't think they're going to be a bad team. I don't know why people think they're going to be so bad as a team this year and possibly the worst team in the Big 12. And here is their schedule coming up for 2025. And again, this team was 6-7 last year in 2024. So let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official prediction for this West Virginia football team for 2025. They'll start things off with Robert Morris here on August 30th, and then they got Ohio here on the road on September 6th. So I wouldn't say that Ohio game is going to be an easy cupcake game here for West Virginia. That's a pretty good Ohio Bobcat team. You know, last year they were one of the top teams in the MAC and everything. So yeah, this is a potential kind of trap game to kick off the season for West Virginia, but they are still the better team. I do expect a pretty good fight from Ohio though. Maybe they fight hard in the first half against the Mountaineers, but West Virginia will probably pull away in the second half. So I think, you know, again, the Bobcats do kind of surprise West Virginia a little bit, but then they pull away in the second half. So I'm kind of expecting a little bit of a tough one there against Ohio, especially when it's on the road. Not a tough place to play because it's a group of 5 team, but I think they do beat Robert Morris here pretty easily. That's going to be probably the easiest game on this schedule for West Virginia, and I got this team starting off 2-0. And then they play rival Pittsburgh at home here on September 13th in the backyard rivalry here. Pittsburgh, obviously a team that, you know, it's going to be solid across the board. We know how good they can be every single year against the top teams in their respective conference, but this is a pretty big rivalry game. You know, West Virginia and Pittsburgh, it seems like they go back and forth every year, and this is a tough game to call every single time when I do these predictions ever since this rivalry was reborn. I think this is another competitive game here in this rivalry game, but I think playing at home, it's probably the difference here for West Virginia. And so I think the Mountaineers actually win this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh did win this game as well. But I'm going to go with the Mountaineers here to get the win in the rivalry. So a 3-0 start here in the Rich Rodriguez era, and then they go into Big 12 play the rest of the way. They open up Big 12 play against Kansas on the road here on September 20th. I do expect the Jayhawks to, you know, maybe bounce back this year, not to be a potential dark horse team or anything like that in the Big 12, and then also a top contender, but I do expect them to turn things around. I think Jalen Daniels back at quarterback. That's obviously going to be the strength of this Kansas team, in my opinion. I think this will be a competitive game. It's probably a low-scoring defensive battle. I mean, it's a game that probably can go either way, but still, I think the Jayhawks playing at home, that's probably the difference here in this one. A 50-50 game, a coin flip game for me. So I'm going to go with the Jayhawks here to get this win. So yeah, that's the first loss of the season here for West Virginia. That's going to put them now at 3-1. Then they come back at home to play Utah on September 27th. Utah is another team that I do expect to turn things around this year. I think they're going to have a pretty decent defense. It really does come down to their offense, though. Their offense in the last couple of years has just not been the greatest, but defensively they've been pretty dominant. So I think this is one of those low-scoring defensive games, but I think West Virginia playing at home, that's probably going to be the difference here in this game as well. Again, just a pretty even matchup here between these two teams. team, so I'm going to go with Mountaineers here to get the win and get their first win in the Big 12 under Rich Rodriguez. That's going to put them here at 4-1. And then they play on a Friday against BYU on the road here on October 3rd. Now, I want to mention this here real quick. I recorded a bunch of videos before even the news broke out of Jake Ratcliffe transferring away and then possibly being kicked off the team. So, yeah, ignore all the other videos that you have seen about Jake Ratcliffe returning for BYU at quarterback. Even without him, is BYU going to struggle? I don't really think so. I think BYU will still be a pretty good team. They have plenty of experience, and they do got plenty of options at quarterback. And also, this is a road game, so it's not a tough place to play. But, BYU, they're going to be a pretty good team in my opinion. I think West Virginia, even without BYU's quarterback, they could probably make this a competitive game for a little bit. Maybe in the first half, but second half, maybe BYU, I do trust their experience a lot more than West Virginia. And also, this is on a Friday, so an upset probably can happen here in this one. But I'm going to go with the Cougars of BYU here to get the win. So even without Jake Ratcliffe, I'm going to go with BYU to get this win. And that's going to drop West Virginia now to 4-2. And then they get their first bye week before playing at UCF on October 18th. This is kind of a similar team to West Virginia. Obviously, new coach, Scott Frost, though, plenty of experience as a head coach here for this UCF football team. And a lot of new faces on this roster as well. So I look at the matchups here between these two teams. I feel like it's pretty even between these two teams as well. I think West Virginia coming off the bye week is going to help them out, but UCF playing at home, that's probably the difference here. Again, I think this is a 50-50 game. It's just one of those coin flip games. And again, the Big 12 is just so hard to predict when it comes to like making individual game predictions. So yeah, UCF I think playing at home, pretty even matchup. I'm going to go with the Knights here to get this win. So that's going to drop now West Virginia to 4-3. So 2 losses in a row now going into the home game against TCU on October 25th. I did pick West Virginia here to win this game. I mean, I think this is also a pretty even matchup. I think TCU on paper probably could be a better team because they're definitely the more well-coached team and also a really solid team more than West Virginia is. But yeah, TCU is a team that I think will be pretty solid this year, but West Virginia playing at home, that's probably the difference here in this one. So I'm going to go with the Mountaineers to get their second Big 12 win of the season here against the Horned Frogs. That's going to put them at 5-3. And then they get to the month of November. They'll play Houston on the road here on November 1st. I do expect the Cougars of Houston to turn things around this year. Pretty tough year for Willie Fritz's first season, but this Houston team I think has upgraded a little bit on both sides of the football. They added a good amount of transfers, and they added Connor Wingman at quarterback. Is he going to be a big addition here for the Houston Cougars? Maybe so, maybe not. We saw his inconsistencies at Texas A&M, and then we saw his consistencies sometime. But I think this Houston team playing at home, that's really the difference here. A pretty even matchup, both teams with new faces on both of their respective rosters, and so I'm going to go with Houston here to win this game. That's going to drop West Virginia now to 5-4, and then they play at home against Colorado on November 8th. I think if there is one game on here where West Virginia is due for a big win this year, it's probably this game because I feel like Colorado definitely has more playmakers than West Virginia does, but this is in the month of November, so I think West Virginia's new team and then also the new faces are going to probably step up by this point. And yeah, the Buffaloes are a team that I'm kind of thinking they're going to take a little bit of a step back from where they were, in the past couple of years. A couple of years ago, they didn't have a great year, but last year they had a pretty good season in their first year in the Big 12. So yeah, with the amount of losses that Colorado had from last year, I just feel like it could be a step back. And I think playing at home, West Virginia is going to come in fired up, and I think they actually pull off an upset here. I wouldn't really say it's an upset because I am expecting Colorado to take a step back, but still, Colorado on paper definitely has the better roster, but still, I think West Virginia does pull off an upset. And then after that, it's a road game at Arizona State on November 15th. Probably the toughest game on the schedule for West Virginia, and then the second toughest game probably going to be against BYU. Yeah, they play BYU and Arizona State, possibly the top 2 teams coming up in the Big 12, both on the road this year. That's very tough here for West Virginia, and yeah, I think these are the 2 toughest games on this schedule. You look at Arizona State, a lot of experience coming back for this team, and also West Virginia has to travel out west here. Yeah, that's going to be pretty tough, in my opinion, for West Virginia to pull off a huge upset. So I think Arizona State actually wins this game pretty easily. I think this is a game where West Virginia probably is not competitive at all, but still, you never know. The Big 12 definitely has a lot of surprises, so maybe this is one of those surprising games, but still, Arizona State is the better team. I'm going to go with Arizona State to get the win. That's going to put West Virginia now at 6-5. Going into the second bye week and in the final game of the season at home against Texas Tech on November 29th. I know a lot of people have really seen my videos, and I really like this Texas Tech team a lot. I think this is the most underrated team heading into 2025, and definitely the most underrated team in the Big 12, in my opinion. They're potentially the top dark horse team in the Big 12, and they also could be a team that could contend for a Big 12 championship. Yeah, I like this Texas Tech team a lot. I like the transfers that they've added, and I do like the experience at quarterback and then also the experience overall on this team as well. So yeah, Texas Tech is a team that's going to have a lot of, hype coming up this year in 2025. This also could be a potential top 25 team as well. So playing at home, West Virginia coming out of the bye week, they will make this a competitive game. But I think at the end of the day, the experience of Texas Tech, especially at quarterback, and then also with the transfers that they added, and both sides of the football with the players that they have coming back from last year, I think that's going to be the difference here. So I'm going to go with Texas Tech here to get the win. Again, a pretty close game that West Virginia can win, but I'm going to go with the Mountaineers to lose that game. So they lose their final 2 games of the season, and I got West Virginia, this team, finishing at 6-6. So yeah, making it to a bowl game under Rich Rodriguez's first year, that is very possible. They can make it to a bowl game and go 6-6. But if they beat Texas Tech, I can see this team going 7-5. But what if they slip up somewhere else in some of these home games? They could still probably slip up against TCU or even Colorado. But yeah, don't sleep on that Ohio game. That's a pretty good team out of the MAC, and it's also on the road. But I do expect West Virginia to really win that game pretty easily, pulling away in the second half. I think 7-5, 6-6, or 5-7, probably the most likely records for this West Virginia team in 2025. But I'm going to go with 6-6. So that's my prediction here for the Mountaineers for 2025. Do you guys agree or disagree with this prediction? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.